Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden, the guy with the golden locks over here. His name is Tim, and this is The Second Legacy, and thank you for stopping by. It, of course, is Friday, so we've got to send you off into the weekend, right? And boy, do we have a story for you. You guys, there are so many twists and turns in this one. You're going to enjoy this, and everything will be linked in the description box if you want to follow along. Now, of course, make sure you like the videos, hit that subscribe button, and turn the notification bell on. We need as many people as we can to get in here to dispense freedom as we do on this channel, and thank you so much in advance for your consideration. Now, the content is brought to you today by LAS Concealment. We're going to say a quick word from them, and then we're going to hit this content. And the content today is brought to you by LAS Concealment. And if you're in the market for a holster for your favorite freedom tool, LAS Concealment is worth a look. They have everything that you could imagine, all molded from Kydex to your said freedom tool. Everything is fit directly to that model for a superior comfort and safety. They have inside and outside the waistband options, multiple designs, all sorts of different colors, and they are tested by the world's most elite special forces. Make sure you check it out. There's a link in the description box below, and thank you so much to LAS Concealment for making this content possible. All right, so like I said, thank you so much to LAS Concealment. Tim, you're wearing the hair again. So it must be a good day. It must be Friday.
Yeah, I was reading the comments in the last video, and people were asking where the hat is. So the hat's back.
This is a viewer requested situation.
It is, yeah.
Oh,
but it also makes me feel like it's 1980 again. You know?
Yeah.
There's some bandanas and play some Rat in the background.
In the front.
Yeah.
No, not Rat. Did you just make a reference to an illicit rock
out of the
band?
cellar, baby?
Oh my goodness gracious! Well, for all of you who are old enough to remember that band, let us know in the comments field below. But Tim, we got to get down to brass tacks.
Yeah.
We've got a situation in Vermont. This one is intriguing. I want to hear you guys' thoughts on this one because we've got a little bit of building permit issue. We got a little bit of Second Amendment rights infringement. We got a little bit of arrest orders. We've got hundreds of thousands of dollars of fine. It's fun for the whole family. So, Tim, what do you say? Why don't we set this bad boy up and break this down?
Yeah, and this one's got a lot of twists and turns in it. Yeah, so
it does.
Stick around to the end because it gets interesting.
Yeah, it's like a country song. All right, Mr. Producer, hit number one for me, and then we're just gonna roll. So the judge orders arrest of gun training center owner in Vermont. Okay, let me give you a little bit more of this setup. Number two, please. A judge on Thursday ordered the owner of a controversial firearms training center in Vermont arrested until he proves that parts of the 30-acre facility have been removed or demolished. So, Tim, of course, this is a very sensitive thing. You've got gun training center. You've got land. Off the bat, just off the rip there, this doesn't start off like a normal infringement case, does it?
No. By infringement, what do you mean?
Well, I mean, like they're persecuting a training center or they're raiding a gun shop.
Yeah,
or,
this looks like this looks like a generic action that a state agency would take, right? If you owe back taxes, if you didn't get a building permit, if you didn't do this, you didn't do that, and the Northeast can be a little bit stringent with their rules and regulations and ordinances, right? So at a high level, reading that part of it, looking at it, you're like, oh, this has nothing to do with them going after gun owners or training facilities or gun dealers or gun anything. This has to do with this dude just basically buying a plot of land, ignoring local ordinances and regulations, and just building whatever he wants, and then not paying anybody, and then whatever, and then the state clamps down on him. Whether you agree with that or not, that's not what I'm getting into. I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying that's what it looks like happened, right? Which doesn't make it they're going after them because he is related to the Second Amendment industry. Until,
as always, you read deeper, because this is why when we say in the intro it's got so many twists and turns. Let me continue setting this up because this is odd the way this shakes out. So number three, Mr. Producer, the property known as Slate Ridge includes multiple buildings and 2 firing ranges on land about the size of 30 football fields or 12 hectares. Fueled by complaints from the neighbors, the town of Paulette has attempted unsuccessfully for several years to get the facility owner, Daniel Banye, let's just call it Banye, to remove structures he built without a permit. Again, this is what it's so weird. The article is titled, Orders Arrest of Gun Training Center Owner in Vermont. But then they go back to this and they say, well, he hasn't paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines because he didn't have permits on the buildings that were gun ranges. This is so weird the way that this is either written or the way this went down. But like, here's the $100,000 in fine. Mr. Producer number 4. The order from the Vermont Environmental Court is the latest attempt to hold Banye accountable after he accrued more than $100,000 in fines so far this year. The arrest, which can be carried out by a constable or county sheriff, must happen in the next 60 days. Okay. like you said, Tim, this sounds much more like a building permitting, a fine, a situation with the county municipalities, which happens to be a gun range up to this point, doesn't it?
Yeah, but you know what? This is a very disturbing story, but probably the most disturbing aspect of this story. I mean, this just gives me chills. Mm-hmm. They actually used hectare. Does anybody out there know what unit of measurement that is without Googling it?
The rest of the world does. Not like us here in America.
America, we do everything in inches, feet, and miles. What in yards? I mean, what is a hectare?
Exactly. What's a hectare? What's that about?
Now they just say grid squares. At least Americans can understand that. Or a click, maybe.
Tim, I'm gonna go to the. I was gonna. Oh, damn it! I was gonna do that. I was gonna say, Tim, I'm gonna go to the grocery store. It's only 2 clicks. We'll be fine. I was gonna say that same thing. That's so funny.
Anyway, go ahead.
Let's continue. Your hair takes us off the rails every time.
It's glorious.
That's okay. Well, let me get to these, number 5 and number 6, and this is where the crux comes in, guys, if you're still with these shenanigans. Number 5, Mr. Producer. In April of 2021, Bonnier describes his property to the Associated Press as a safe and environmentally friendly place for people to discharge their firearms. The facility also offers lessons in first aid and anything to do with the outdoor and firearms. In 2019, the town first issued a violation notice to Bonnier for building a number of structures on the property without town zoning approval. In March 2021, the Environmental Court ordered Bonnier to end any firearms training at the center and remove unpermitted structures. Again, unpermitted structures, and the Vermont Supreme Court rejected Bonnier's appeal in January of 2022. So all of this, up until this point, it's about to take the turn. Up until this point, this sounds like a nothing burger for the gun world. I mean, Tim, am I wrong? It sounds like it's just a permitting issue.
Yeah, he violated all sorts of ordinances and permitting issues and whatnot, and owes a bunch of back money, and he's not paying, so they're going to go after him for that. That's what it seems like.
Right. That's what it seems like. But as everything else that we cover, sometimes you kind of dust off something that looks routine, and then you find something atrocious underneath. And here comes the atrocious part, and this is where we're going to really dive into this. Mr. Producer, number 6 for me. In response to Slate Ridge, Vermont State Senator Philip Baruth, a Democrat and progressive from Burlington, introduced a bill in the legislature this year to ban paramilitary training centers in the state. The bill passed and was signed in May by Republican Governor Phil Scott. So this is a thing, but listen to what this bill actually does. This is the part where Tim and I are going to have a hissy fit. Violators faced up to 5 years in prison or a fine of up to $50,000 or both, according to the law. Listen to what it prohibits. It prohibits a person from teaching, training, or demonstrating to anyone else the use, application, or making of a firearm, explosive, or incendiary device capable of causing injury or death. That seems, I don't know, that seems kind of weird, Tim. How are you going to make it against the law from anyone from teaching, training, or demonstrating to anyone else the use, application, or making of a firearm? Take the making of the firearm out. Use and application?
Yeah. So that seems to me like the Supreme Court would strike that down if somebody stepped up with standing.
In seconds.
Yeah, in seconds this would be struck down because you have a right to own firearms. They're going to say you have a the anti-gunners want to do things like mandatory training, mandatory licensing, mandatory. But in this instance, they're saying, well, in our state, you can own guns, but you can't learn how to use them properly. I mean,
it's very bizarre.
It's illegal to get training. Yeah.
Right. It's illegal to get training. In fact, it's so illegal to get training, we introduced a bill that bans paramilitary organizations. In fact, you can go to jail for 5 years and have a $50,000 fine. However, we're going to shut down this training center and issue an arrest warrant for permitting violations.
Yeah. So here's what I'm thinking.
This whole thing.
Could this be that they know if they charge this guy under this law, I don't know if anybody's been charged under it yet, training militias.
Right.
But if they charged him under
paramilitary,
then he would have standing and the Supreme Court would throw this all out. So they apparently had to go at it at a different angle, perhaps. They don't want this challenged in court. I don't know. It's going to happen.
Then why pass? Well, of course it's going to happen. But why pass the law if you're too afraid to use it because it's too unconstitutional? So you go after permitting. It's almost like you show me the man, I'll show you the crime.
Oh, yeah. Because I guarantee you they had that conversation, right? They're looking like, well, we got this law and we got these violations of ordinances. well, let's go after the ordinances because we don't know. This could be a whole bag of worms in an election cycle. We don't want to open that one, so we're going to go over here.
Not an election cycle. Tim, are you implying that the gun controllers and the Democratic Party would dare use infringements in bills as political pawns to further their political power?
I'm such a horrible person.
You would never.
I'm sorry.
Stop it.
I'm sorry.
You jest. That's just your hair talking.
That's it. I'm closing my Twitter account and opening a Threads account.
They would never do that. Of course they would. That's literally their entire announced plan yesterday. We covered it on my channel. They're like, well, we're going after the suburban Democratic or suburban women voters, and it's going to work out really well at the 2024 election. Women, I thought it was about solving the scourge of gun violence and common sense gun regulation.
Right.
It's not about that. It's about fundraising and power grabs. Weird.
So here's the other thing. I'm not a lawyer, and I only know based upon some of the things that we've done in our own state of Indiana. Opening an outdoor open air firing range is not an easy thing to do, right? Because there's all sorts of Environmental Protection Agency regulations with regards to lead and all this other stuff, and you have to go through all these things to get approval, at least in the state of Indiana, to open an outdoor open air firing range. So anybody that opens a new firing range in Indiana generally puts it inside of a building, and that changes things, right? Then they just have to get permitting from the local city or jurisdiction, and that's generally easier than trying to stay within the confines of the laws regarding lead and outdoor pollutants and all the other stuff that we have to deal with in today's world.
All those things,
right? So,
but that's the interesting thing. The environmental courts what issued this order.
Yeah, I mean, they don't even bring that up. All they're talking about is the fact he didn't get a building permit and hasn't paid his fines. It just seems like they're trying to avoid the real issue that's driving this, and they're looking for ways around it so they don't get jammed up for their actions. That's what it seems like.
I fully agree. Now and that kind of goes into a different area. First of all, yes, of course, that law is extremely unconstitutional. You're banned to teach anyone how to use or apply. Come on, like that,
right? Or which under federal law is perfectly legal.
Right. I mean, like that's even sillier than banning magazines, and we can because it's not part of the Second Amendment. Like, come on, that's asinine on a next level. But you know what? We got the SCOTUS that's dishing out insults to the left every 3 seconds right now. But it's just. This kind of brings up an interesting point, and I think this is something worth talking about. We live in a very hyper-polarized political environment right now, so any one little whiff of anything that's happening in either side, there's going to immediately be attention drawn to it. And I think this could have gone wrong from that perspective. Like, for example, if we only read the first 5 clips on this, and then we kind of couched it as they're going after training centers of the Second Amendment, that may have been construed as disingenuous. However, when you keep digging and you look at the law that they brought in, but they didn't apply and they never referenced, but they still brought it in, you kind of uncover some nefarious stuff down here, don't you? I mean, that conversation I think is important to have.
It stinks to high heaven. It certainly does. And I think, again, it's all in an effort to keep them out of court. They just want to get this guy shut down. They know this is probably the quickest and easiest way to do it. They're not going to use the other laws that they have on the books because that would be too controversial. And and they don't want to fight it in the courts and give this guy standing to overturn their law. So they're going to go after him with not paying his taxes.
And exactly, they're pulling an Al Capone.
Yep, that's
exactly right. They're Al Caponeing him. No, that's 100% correct, and it kind of points to the power of these bureaucratic municipalities, where you can say, well, you have the right to have a gun range, but do you have your environmental EPA standards up to date?
Yeah.
Do you have your air filtration? Do you have your hazardous pay taxes and all that good stuff? Do you have all these different fines and fees? Because if you don't, we want you to embrace the Second Amendment. It's just you can't.
Yeah, they're pushing this out, through all sorts of different efforts, right? So, yeah, you have a Second Amendment right to own a gun. Okay, we keep losing that one in court. But you know what? We got to put a death tax on every round that's sold. We got to put a 5-cent tax on every round that's sold so we can pay for hospital bills of people that are injured by people misusing firearms, which that money never goes to paying anybody's hospital bill. That goes into every other government program they have.
Fund.
Yeah,
Slush
I mean,
fund.
it's just taxes, it's just like, when they say, well, we're going to put a carbon tax on this, we're going to do that. How does a tax stop emissions? How does a tax stop people from committing crimes? It doesn't. It's just another way to milk you out of money using political agendas. So anyway.
Tim, how could you? That is that 80s talk. It's clearly obvious that those taxes go to mitigate the damages to your carbon footprint to this amazing planet that we have. You need to get with the times.
We're going to tax you to reduce carbon emissions by putting that money into improving the roads so you can drive faster, further, and longer.
Yep. No, exactly. That's like, yes, you're getting it. And also, while we're hovering on the topic, we're going to go with tungsten projectiles and copper projectiles because lead is toxic to the environment, even though all of those things come out of the ground.
Yeah. And keep in mind, we have laws on the books that limit what materials you can use in the construction of a bullet. So they've kind of painted themselves into the corner here, right? Like, we don't want you using lead anymore. Well, you can't use any other heavy element or metal or anything like that because a lot of that's banned because they consider it to be armor piercing when it comes to handgun rounds and things like that, right? So, the anti-gunners aren't necessarily the smartest people in the world.
No, but I think that speaks to, and I appreciate that. That was very cordial. Business in the front, party in the back. So I think that brings up an interesting point. Yeah, you're welcome. That was a mullet reference.
Yeah, it was.
So I think the thing that you have to understand, if you're looking at this and you're younger, let's just say you're in your 20s.
Oh, you're talking
not you. I said 20s, not 200s. So if you're in your 20s and you're looking at like, well, yeah, it's a law to make sure that we do this, and yeah, it's a law to make sure we do this. The stranglehold of all of these executive bureaucracies and the municipalities and the fines and all of these little committees, this is how they control you through permitting. This is this exact same principle is what they want to do with licensure to own a firearm. This is the same thing where they want you to have a license to own ammunition. All of these things are to put money collecting services on you for licenses and permitting, but also prevent more people from accepting the fact that they can have their Second Amendment rights. This is a well-known thing. This is not new.
No.
It's just so twisted. And that's what's happening to this guy, going back to the story at Slate Ridge.
Yeah, Slate Ridge, Valor Ridge, which came first? Inquiring minds want to know.
I don't know.
Anyway.
I don't know. There's ridges.
It'll be interesting.
Apparently they're all free.
It'll be interesting to see how this one plays out.
It will.
I don't know. I would imagine they're going to jam him up on the back taxes or whatever they're classifying the money owed as.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't think this is going to wind up being the Second Amendment case that it should be, because I think we all know what their actual motives are and what's driving this. It's a bunch of salty neighbors.
Is the old, exactly. This is the old. I passed a virtue signal law, which makes me feel good and it gets me reelected. But whoa, we can't enforce it.
We can't use that.
Get sued.
Yeah.
Whoa. Let's not get crazy.
We don't want to wind up in the Supreme Court.
Insane.
Yeah.
We don't want to use the laws we passed. No.
These people will stop at nothing. Well, anyway, guys, we look forward to your comments down below. Do we overlook something? Do you think there might be something else driving this action in the state of Vermont? You can only speculate, I guess. If you guys like to be part of our if you like to be part of our call-in show, there's a link in the video description below. Follow that link to the Google Doc, fill out the information, and we'll get you on the show. Thank you for watching. We'll talk to you guys soon.